ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्.
Today we will start with exception handling. We would be studying about how exceptions are propagated in a particular program. Here we have a class which is test 1. Now what do we have in this particular class? We've got two methods. One is our public static void main and the other one is M1. Now in this M1 method we have written I equals 0, j equal to 4 and we have divided j by I. That means we are dividing this particular number 4 by 0. Why are we doing this? Because we want to create an exception, divide by 0 exception. And then we would see that whenever this exception occurs, how this exception is propagated. Now here M1 is the method in which an exception is created. Okay. Here you have a main method which is going to get executed whenever you run a particular program. Now, whenever you say Java test1, what happens? Your JVM looks for a main method in test1 class. Will it find this main method? Yes, it will find this main method and it would start executing the main method. Now, what is the execution over here? Whenever you enter your main method, you are giving a call to a method M1. When you look at this M1, you would go to the definition of M1 and you would start executing. Now, what is happening is, you execute this statement, you execute this statement, and when you are executing line number 13, at this particular time, an exception occurs. Now, whenever an exception is occurring, okay, the exception is thrown back to its callee. Okay, what do you mean by callee? Here an exception has occurred. Now this exception has to be reported to the callee. Callee is nothing but the method which is calling the method M1. Here who is calling M1? Your method main is calling your M1. So if an exception occurs at M1, it has to be reported to its callee. That means it has to be reported to M1 and it has to be reported to your main method, and main is going to give you, or main is the class who is going to throw an exception. Now here let's compile this class and run it. I will explain you how it happens. Okay, so just say java test1.java java test1. Now look at the error again very carefully. Exception in thread main. Now we know that the exception has occurred in which method? It has occurred in method M1. But what message is your JVM telling you? JVM is telling you, see boss, there was an exception in the main method. Now why did it report that the exception was there in the main method? Now here, just look at it. Okay, this is your main method. Main method is giving a call to your M1. An exception has occurred over here. Now, if there is nobody to catch this particular exception, suppose you don't have a try block and you don't have a catch block. If this exception is not handled in this particular M1, what am I going to do? I am going to go to my callee. Who is my callee over here? Main method is my callee. I will go to my callee and say that, see boss, do you have a try and a catch block to catch me? Now, I would search for a try and a catch over here as main. If I do not get an appropriate catch block, then I am going to say that nobody is able to catch me, so I am going to explode this particular program. Explode means just halt the program and come out of the execution. Now, when you are coming out of the execution, who is failing? Your main is failing. Why your main is failing? Because here M1 exception occurred, my collie and tell him, see boss, there was an exception, nobody caught me. Are you capable of catching me? If you are also not capable of catching me, then I am going to explode my program, and then I would say it was your fault. It was whose fault? Main's fault, because the ultimate callee, who's the ultimate callee over here? Main method, because nobody is calling main. Main is calling everyone. So the ultimate callee over here was unable to catch a particular exception, and that is why the error over here, go to the command prompt. The error which is coming, and the JVM is flashing what error? It is not saying that, see boss, there was an error in M1. He is saying that there was an error in your main. Okay? What was the error? It was divide by 0. Now here you can see the stack trace. Okay? Stack trace means here would be the main method. Main is telling you, I was unable boss to catch this particular exception. Line number 6, that is nothing but we were invoking my M1 method. Line number 6 over here is nothing but invoking my M1 method. So main is going to tell you that I failed at this particular line. Now here you can see the stack trace, which means that the ultimate or the original error which occurred was at M1, that is line number 13, that divide by 0. Okay? Now M1 passed the exception or threw the exception to main. Main was not able to catch it, so your program exploded. So now, in order that our program should not explode or our program should carry on the execution, what we should do? We should provide a try and a catch block. Now it depends on the programmer. Now here, listen very carefully. This depends on the programmer at what level he wants to stop the execution or at what level he wants to continue the execution. Which means, suppose your M1, go here, go to the edit. So I'll just write a line system.out.println. I'll explain what I said in a minute. System.out.println, hello world. Hello world. Okay. Now after M1 write one line system.out.println hello world 2. Hello world 2. Let's write one more method. M2. Give a call to M2 notifying the definition of this M2. Okay. Static void M2. Now why are we declaring these methods as static? So that we can call them directly. There is no need to create an object of test1 and then invoke these methods. Now just write system.out.println M2 call. Okay. Now I have, just go to it. Wow. And after M2 write one line system.out.println hello world 3. Okay. Now we have included two methods M1 and M2, and we are invoking those methods over here in main. First we are printing hello world, then we have M1, then we are printing hello world 2, then we are invoking M2, and then we have hello world 3. Now please compile and execute. Now what would happen? Will my M2 execute? No, it would not execute. Will my hello world 2 execute? No, it won't execute. Okay, now just see. See the result. What is happening? You have hello world printed and then you have an exception over here. Let's go back to our program and see what's happening. Here, main was set to be executed. The JVM entered the main. He executed hello world 1. Okay. After that, I gave a call to M1. I entered M1, I started executing M1. Okay. Now when I am executing M1, I got an exception. Anybody is here to catch the exception in M1? No. Then what would happen? I would throw the exception to its callee. Who is the callee over here? The main method is the callee. I will go to main. Okay. Now, an exception occurs at M1. Nobody is there to catch that particular exception. Where does the exception go? It goes back to the main, okay, and it searches for a catch block, an appropriate catch block. Now, do I have a catch block in my main? I do not have a catch block in my main. So what would happen? If I see that there is no catch, I return over here, I see there is no catch block, what am I going to do? I'm going to explode this particular system, okay. I won't execute hello world 2, I would not give a call to M2, I would not execute hello world 3. Now suppose you want to say that I want to stop this particular malpractice and I want to introduce try and a catch block. Now it depends on the programmer when does he wants to introduce a try and a catch block. I can introduce in M1 as well as I can introduce in this particular main method also. Okay. Now this is the biggest question as to where you're supposed to introduce your try and catch. Now suppose your M1 method, come down. If you want that, or if you think that your M1 method is dependent, your M2 method is dependent on your M1 method, or if you want that if M1 should not work, if M1 fails to work, okay, main should also not work. If this is your condition, then you don't provide try and a catch block at all. But if you think that, fine, if M1 is not working, some part of main should not work, but the rest of the main should work. Okay? That means if I am saying that if M1 does not work, M2 at least should work. Okay? Because I am giving a call to M2 in the main itself, I should make it a point that if M1 is not working, M2 should work. Okay? Whatever happens, M2 is independent of M1. If there is something wrong in M1, then it should not affect my M2. Okay? In this particular case, what I would do is, and my problem over here is, if I want this particular condition that if M1 is not working, M2 should work, I can place a try and a catch block in M1 itself. Okay? If I am placing a try and a catch block in M1, can you please write a try and a catch block? Okay, and write the code of M1 inside. Then I provide the try and a catch block here itself. Fine. Catch, just hold a normal exception. Exception E. Exception E. Yeah. And just write E dot print stack trace. Print stack trace. Okay. So now the exception is occurring over here, and I'm catching the exception here itself. So if I'm handling the exception in M1 itself, my main would not get affected. My main would work as it is. Okay. So now if you execute this program, my hello world 1 is going to get printed, my hello world 2 is going to get printed, my hello world 3 is going to get printed. Why? Because M1 is not getting affected at all. M1 does not know only whether an exception has occurred in M1 or it has not occurred in M1. Okay? Here, hello world 1 occurred. I went to M1. There was an exception over here. I printed the exception. I went back normally to my main. I printed hello world 2. I called my M2. I returned from M2 and I printed hello world 3. Okay. So if you are catching exception then and there, your main would not come to know at all. But now here, if you want that, if M1 is not working, I should tell main about it. Okay. but M2 should work. Now listen to the condition. It's slightly twisted. Main is calling what? Main is giving a call to M1. Main is giving a call to M2. If anything is happening at M1, if you don't want your main to come to know about it, then you give your try and catch here only. Okay? But if there is a condition where an exception occurs at M1 and you want that main should be notified about it, or main should be catching the exception of M1, but M2 should run as it is. There should be no harm to particular M2. Then where should you provide your try and catch? You should provide it in your main. Okay? Because if there is nobody to catch an exception in M1, then the error or the exception is going to go to the callee and check whether is there anybody to take care of me. If I'm going to find my catch block, I'm going to execute the catch block and then run the main as smoothly as possible. Okay? So now what I'm going to do over here is, I'm going to provide a try and a catch block. Now here, you've got to be very careful where you are providing your try and a catch block. Because whenever an exception is handled, it goes to the catch block. Okay? It executes the catch block, and whatever is written outside the catch block is executed properly. I won't go to the try block again. So in the given condition where if my M1 is not working, main should be notified, okay, or main should be taking care of the exception, but M2 should work by hook or crook. M1 working, M1 not working, M2 should definitely work. In that particular case, where should I give my try and catch block? I will give my try and catch block over here. Just introduce a try. Okay. Now after world 2. After hello world 2. No, after hello world 2. Yeah. Now look at this very carefully. Okay. I am giving E dot print stack trace. This is your main. Main is giving a call to M1. Main is giving a call to M2. Okay. Now here, in this particular scenario, what would happen is, I enter my main, I print hello world 1. Okay. Then I execute my M1, or I go inside this try block and I am executing my M1. I would go down and execute this. Now remove the try and catch from here, because if the exception is taken care in M1 itself, the exception won't propagate to main. So just delete. Yeah, that's good. So now an exception occurs over here at line number 24. Where would the exception go? Exception would go to its callee. Who's the callee over here? Main. I would go back to the main, telling him or asking him, do you have a catch block for me? Now, when I am asking or seeking for a catch block, I would not enter my try again. I would see, okay, I had come out of this try. Do they have an appropriate catch block? Yes, they do have an appropriate catch block. I will execute this particular catch block and then I would call my M2. Okay, because I am out of the catch block, the exception which I had with me has been taken care of, it has been handled successfully. So after coming out of the catch block, I should resume my execution of the program. Okay, so I would come out of the catch block and call my M2. Now in this particular case, who gave an error? M1 gave an error. Okay, so I am coming out of line number 9. Will I print hello world 2? Will I print it? No, I cannot print it. Why? Because once you come out of the try block, you can never re-enter your try block again. Who is giving an exception? This particular line is giving an exception. Why is this line giving an exception? Because M1 created an exception condition. It did not find the appropriate catch block. It went to its calling. An exception has propagated to another level. It has gone to the person, or it has gone to a method who raised that exception. Okay. So I came over here, had a look at my catch, executed my catch. I would not come over here again. So what will get printed now? Hello world 1 will get printed. Definitely it will get printed. M1? No, because it is giving an exception. Hello world 2 will get printed? No, because I won't re-enter my try again. E print stack trace will get printed? Yes, because this is what I am executing in my catch. I am giving a call to M2. Let's go to M2. Is there any problem in M2? No. So will this get printed? Definitely yes. After printing M2, where will I go again? To the calling. Over here. Will hello world 3 get printed? Absolutely yes. Okay. So one thing you've got to be very sure and burn it in your brain that whenever an exception occurs in a method, if it does not find an appropriate catch block, the message or the exception would propagate to its next level, or the exception is going to propagate to its calling. It will search an appropriate catch block in the calling. If it gets the exception handler over there, or if it gets an appropriate catch block in its calling, it will execute the catch block and resume the execution of the later program. Suppose if your exception does not get an appropriate catch block in its calling also, what would happen over here? Your program is going to get exploded. So this mechanism is called as exception propagation. Now here, you've got to understand that there are two things. There is a rule in Java which says exception propagation takes place automatically in case of unchecked exceptions. Okay. Now here, are you doing anything, or are you including a specific mechanism in your application to say that, see boss, exception occurred over here. If you don't find an appropriate catch block, please go to main. Are you specifying that? No. It is happening automatically. Whenever an exception is occurring over here, what kind of exception is occurring over here? Arithmetic exception. If it is occurring, it will check automatically whether I have a catch block. If I don't have a catch block, I should go to my calling. Okay? This is happening automatically. You are not providing any exception handling mechanism. But this is true only for cases of unchecked exceptions. Now you will ask me, what is unchecked and checked exceptions? Now in your exceptions, we have seen the hierarchy, right? And we have seen that there is one base class called as an object. Okay, the subclass is throwable. Throwable has got again two classes. One is your exception class and the other is your error class. Okay, now in this exceptions also, okay, there is two varieties. One is called as unchecked exceptions and one is called as checked exceptions. So all the exception classes which are there in your, all the exception classes which are derived from your exception can either be in the category of unchecked exceptions or it lies to another category of checked exceptions. Now you would ask me, what do you mean by unchecked exceptions and what do you mean by checked exceptions? Now, all the exceptions which occur at the runtime, okay, are called as unchecked exceptions. Now, what do you mean by exceptions which occur at the runtime? Now, suppose there is a particular condition, or let's have a look at this method M1 only at line number 20. What is the method? Just look very deeply in this method and see what is the method. Int I equals 0, agreed. Int j equal 4, agreed. System.out.println j divided by I. Now at the time of compilation, okay, will I know that when the j is dividing by I, it will throw an exception? divide by 0? I cannot. Now why you cannot? Understand this also. Whenever you are compiling your application, what do you check? You only check the syntax. This operator, which is your assignment operator, is only active at the runtime. So when I am saying int I equals 0, what am I going to check? As a compiler, I will check I is of type int. Agree. There is some equal to sign. Okay. This is a numeric value. Is the numeric value enough to hold into I? Yes, it is. Then I would not check anything else. I will go to J. Okay. I will say equal to. Okay. This is a numeric value. The size of the numeric value, can your int adapt or can your int take? Yes. Now at the time of compilation, I will not say I, the value of I is 0, the value of j is 0. This will not happen at the compilation time. When the value of I will be assigned as 0 at the runtime. Whenever you are executing your program at that particular time, when I am executing at the runtime I equals 0, I am giving the value of I as 0. Is this well understood? So now at the runtime, when I am saying j is divided by I am actually placing the values and I am saying 4 is divided by 0. Can this condition happen? No, it cannot happen. You cannot divide anything by 0. Then it would give me an error. So all the errors which occur at the runtime, okay, or which occur when your program is actually getting executed are called as runtime errors. Okay. The other parts, all the other exceptions which are not derived from your runtime exception class are called as checked exceptions. Okay. Now we will see what checked exceptions are and blah blah blah. But let's first burn it into our brain. What are these unchecked exceptions and what do you mean by your runtime exception? Okay. Now go to the API over here. No, here. Mozilla. What kind of an exception we got? We got an arithmetic exception right now. Okay, so you will see arithmetic exception is a class in its own self, but it is derived from what? It is derived from runtime exception. Okay, I'll just make this very bold. It is derived from your runtime exception class. So all the exception classes which are derived from your runtime exception class are termed as unchecked exceptions or runtime exceptions. They only occur when you are executing your application. Okay. Now runtime exception is also what? Is a derived class of exception. Okay. Now here, if I click over here, array index out of bound. Okay. Array index out of bound is getting derived from index out of bound, which is again getting derived from runtime exception class. So what kind of an exception is array index out of bound? Checked or unchecked? Very good. It is unchecked. Okay. Now click on go down. Number format exception, because these exceptions are like very familiar to you guys. Number format exception. Click over here. Number format exception is also an exception class. Okay. Getting derived from illegal argument exception, which is again getting derived from runtime exception. So can I say that all the exceptions which are derived from your runtime exception class are termed as unchecked, okay? Because their condition or they can arise only when you are executing your application. Now let's understand what do you mean by checked exceptions. So now let's understand what do you mean by checked exception, okay? First I'll show you an example and then we will go towards what do you mean by checked exception. So let's open our Reddit class, open a new class, okay, and we will term this as checked exception. Okay, now here in your public static void main, create a method m1, static void m1. Okay, no. Just in this particular thing, say file, we will create a file. Okay, file f equal to new file. Okay, I know I have not taught you how to deal with file operations or all that stuff, but right now just consider it as an example. Okay, abc.txt. Okay, system.out.println. That means you are opening a file, or you are creating a file. You are not creating a file. You are opening a file abc.txt, where in your current folder, okay, f.exists. Okay, yeah, you can say it as checked exception 1 or checked exception, whatever the name of it. No, don't create it. Don't create a file. Go to checked exception.java. Okay, now here, what have I done? I have declared one method m1. I am opening a file, or I am locating a file abc.txt, and then on this particular object I am checking whether this particular file exists in my current folder or no. Compile this application. Oh, it cannot find a symbol. If you are using a file, you have got to import a package called as java.io. So let's go back and write our import statement. Import java.io.star. Compile it. It got compiled. Go to your IO file में जाओ. API में file में जाओ. IO वही है. हाँ वही. File में जाओ. Okay. Now that we have created this particular file object. Okay, we are checking whether this particular file physically exists or it does not exist. Okay, now that you have created a file, you would want to write it into a file. Okay, or you want to read from that particular file. So what we are going to do is we are going to create one input stream. Okay, input streams are used in order to read from a file. I will say file input stream FIS equal to new file input stream. And which file do I want to read? I want to read this abc.txt. So I will pass f as an object over here. Okay, save it. And now compile. I am only creating a stream which is capable of reading the file abc.txt. Now I would compile this application. Look at this. It's saying that on line number 13, I have got an error. Unreported exception, file not found, must be caught or declared to be thrown. Now what does this line mean, and how is it related with your checked exceptions? Now checked exceptions are of a category which are checked at the compile time. Runtime exceptions were the exceptions which were checked at the execution of the program or the runtime of the program. Now, all the exceptions which occur at the compile time. Now, the exceptions which I am talking about are checked exceptions. They are not your syntax errors and all those things. If it says I cannot find a symbol, I cannot term it as a checked exception, okay? Because it is nothing but your syntax error, or you have not written your code properly. That is why that exception is coming. Now I have written my code absolutely fine, but why is it giving me an error? See, this is nothing but this is a warning to you, okay? Now it is telling me that there is an exception called as file not found. It should be caught or declared to be thrown, which means that I am using a method, Okay, go back to your edit class. Okay, come here, come here. I am using this particular line number 13 in order to create an input stream. Okay, input stream is nothing but a stream which will read from a file. Now, in order, just let's forget about checked exceptions and let's forget about exception handling for a moment. Let's talk very basic. I want to read from a file. If I want to read from a file, what should happen? That file should exist physically. If that file is not only present on your hard disk, how are you going to read from that file? Yes or no? So now, when you are creating a program, okay, now what is this? What do you mean by an API? API is nothing but a group of classes. What are classes? Classes is nothing but a group of methods. This library consists of predefined methods by people who created Java language so that we as programmers can make use of these methods and develop our applications faster, isn't it? So now, when we are saying that I want to create an object of file input stream, okay, in this particular thing, what is file input stream? It is an object or it is a class created by whom? By those Java people, okay. What are we going to do? We are going to use this particular class. Now, when those people were creating your class or when those people were creating file input stream, they thought that, okay boss, I am creating a class which is going to read from a file. But if that file only does not exist, I should report this error to whom? I should tell about this particular error to the user. Okay, so I should say that user, you please be careful. Okay, when you are using my method, there is a possibility that the file would be there or it would not be there. Okay, it is just an alert mechanism which is telling the user, you please be careful. This particular piece of code which you are going to use might cause you an error. So, you be prepared to handle this error. Now, I don't know how would you want to handle this error. Either you propagate this particular error or you handle this particular error in your code only. I do not care. I am just telling you that if you are using my method, there is a possibility. Now see, understand, there is a possibility. I am not saying that error will definitely occur. I am just reporting or telling to the user of my method or of my constructor, see boss, if you are using me, there is a possibility that this file would be there or this file would not be there. If this file is there, I would work perfectly fine. But if this file is not there, then I am going to raise an exception. Now you worry about your code, how will you handle this exception? Are you going to tell the exception to report to the main or report to its colleague, or you are going to catch the exception then and there? These kind of exceptions are called as checked exceptions. Checked exceptions are the exceptions which are defined or which are checked at the compile time. Okay, a checked exception is a exception which is thrown at the user, and the user should be able to either declare that exception that I am going to propagate it or I am going to throw it out. I am not going to handle it. I will ask my boss or I will ask my colleague to handle it, or if I want to handle it, I will provide a try or a catch block. Okay, so whenever you have checked exceptions in your program, checked exceptions should either be thrown from your system, thrown from your method, or they should be caught in your method. So make a note of this. Whenever you have checked exceptions or whenever you are dealing with the methods which throw exceptions and those exceptions are checked exceptions, then your method or your program should be able to handle these exceptions or throw it out of your system. So now, which particular line is throwing an exception? A checked exception. Line number 13 is throwing a checked exception. So, I have to provide provide some mechanism to handle this exception. Either I will throw it from M1 and tell M1 to tell main about it, or I am going to catch this particular exception. Right now, I will catch this exception in a try and a catch block. So can you provide a try and a catch block over here for line number 13? Now tell me, do we have a file abc.txt? No, we do not have a file abc.txt. Okay? Okay, then you'll have to give a curly brace for your M1 also. Finish M1. Finish. Yeah. Okay. So now this is in try and this is in catch. Give your exception. Exception E. E dot print stack trace. X should be done. That's fine. Okay. So now if we compile, it got compiled. Why did it compile? Because there was a checked exception which was getting thrown by my line number 13, by my line number 16, which is file input stream and phi s equal to new file input stream. The moment I am using this constructor, a checked exception is thrown at me. As a programmer, I should provide mechanism to either throw this exception out of my system or catch this particular exception. What did I choose? I choose to catch this particular exception. The moment I do this, my application or my program is going to compile, and now I am ready to handle this exception, which is nothing but my checked exception. Now in the next class we will see how to throw it out of your system or how to deal with checked exceptions. So in order to summarize, you have an exception class. All the exceptions which are present in your Java are derived from exception class. There is two categories or two varieties of your exceptions. One is your checked exceptions, the other is your unchecked exceptions. All the exceptions which occur at the runtime or they are derived from your runtime exception class are called as unchecked because they are not checked at the compile time. They only occur at the runtime. Checked exceptions are the exceptions which are checked at the compile time. Okay? And checked exceptions should either be thrown out of your program or they should be caught in your program. Okay? So whenever you are dealing with checked exceptions, either provide a try and a catch or prepare a mechanism which throws it out of your system. That would be all for today. We'll continue in the next class.